wanted to make homemade bread but aren't sure where to begin? Well, I'm going to teach you everything that I know and share with you all my tips and everything that I've learned over the years. I started baking bread when I was a teenager. I've made bread ever since then, and I change things up, and I'm continually learning new things about bread. The first thing about bread, and the most basic thing, is the yeast that you'll need to have the bread rise. And there's a couple of different types of yeast that are available. The first are some packets you can buy, and you can get different varieties. This is an instant yeast or rapid rise yeast. I rarely use this type of yeast, but many people do. The main reason that I don't use it is because this is what I grew up using and what I've always used. This is an active dry yeast. Both of these yeasts can be used interchangeably with the same amounts in a recipe. The main difference is that an instant yeast does not have to be activated before you use it. You can just add it right to your dry ingredients and then make your dough. An active dry yeast has to be first activated and put into water along with some sort of food so that it becomes active, and you'll see it start to bubble up, and then you add it to the rest of your ingredients. Sometimes ones that are a rapid rise or an instant rise have an extra enzyme that's added to the yeast that makes the bread making process quicker. So the rising time goes much quicker than when you use an active dry yeast. Another type of yeast that's available would be a sourdough yeast starter. And this is a wild yeast that you would start mixing flour and water together. This is a much slower process than either of these commercial yeasts. The yeast that I like to use is the active dry yeast. And because I make bread so often, I do buy this in bulk. I buy it in a 2-pound container. It comes in a brick, a vacuum sealed brick, and I get it at Costco. I open that up and I divide it in two. I put half into the refrigerator and half into the freezer. Now, if you're just starting out, you're not gonna wanna buy a 2-pound brick. That's a lot of yeast. You can start with these packets. You'll use 1 to 2 packets per batch of bread, depending on your recipe, or you can buy some smaller jars that's more economical than the individual packets. I store this in the refrigerator and one in the freezer, and this lasts for several years. This one is from November 2023, and it's now January 2025. And this has been in my refrigerator the whole time. Every time before I use this yeast, I do proof it or activate it, and that lets me know if it's working. It also gets it ready to add it to the dough.